Welcome to the Strategic Pursuit Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Macias, and today we have a special guest. His name is Enrique Rodriguez.
Thank you for having me, Brandon.
Enrique, you bought an electrical contractor business, but before we get into all of that, I want people to understand the path that got you here. Where were you professionally before buying?
I studied electrical engineering, but before that, I came to the United States when I was 7 from Peru with my parents. After going to high school and grade school in the U.S., I went to Virginia Tech, studied electrical engineering. In the summers, I would do blue collar work, building commercial and residential pools through a buddy's dad who owned a business, small business where the labor increased in the summer based on the seasonality of the business. And that was like my biggest exposure to a blue collar labor. Me and some college buddies working, building stuff in the summers. But then I got to go back to school. And when I graduated, I went into white collar work. So I had some exposure to blue collar work, but I didn't have to survive off of it. It's a big difference there. My hat off to the guys who work with their hands and, develop a skill and feed a whole family with that. That's very profound impact, to hard labor, in which I hire several dozen of those guys now. So then after Virginia Tech, I went into design engineering along with the architect's drawings. There's, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, structural drawings that, actually build the buildings. I built government facilities, high rises, a lot of city structures. And I did that for 17 years. I grew a lead designer, I got my professional engineering license. Then I was a project manager, and then I managed the whole department, about 12 engineers. And then you either move on to management as a project manager and rise those ranks, but there's no like clear pathway like in other industries unless you start your own practice. If you go into accounting, there's partnership opportunities. I didn't see those as an engineer, a pathway to becoming part owner. I did have stock options and stuff, but it wasn't really that whole ownership control part of it. And that's what I was looking for. More to give and more to do than running individual projects. So I started searching. I didn't feel comfortable with the business side of it. I had a lot of engineering background and experience, but this is a different animal. And so I went to get my MBA at night at George Mason University, also here in Northern Virginia. Did that for 3 years, kind of took a pause in the pandemic, finished in 2023. And then I went back to the search after a short break.
So I just want to get that straight. So you were working, searching, and then decided to get your MBA at that time?
Yeah, yeah.
And once you decided to get your MBA, you stopped the search, but you were still working. This was part-time schooling to get graduate and get that MBA degree.
My master in business administration, so I could have the fundamentals of running a company and be comfortable with finances and accounting and everything running a business. I'm very comfortable in electrical construction and design, and but I didn't have that comfort in managing profit and loss. So I went to get my thinking that's the best way. Got my MBA. I could have gotten a job where I managed profit and loss at a smaller company, but I went the MBA route. I mean, I don't regret it. It's learned a lot of good stuff that I apply every day as a business owner. I recommend it to anybody who's, if you start a business from scratch, you learn it the hard way as you grow. But if you're taking over something that's already running and you want to take it from where it is to the next level, an MBA would definitely help you get there because systems and processes of the day-to-day operations of running a business do get more complicated when you go from yourself to you're a foreman-based business, whether it's you and the group of people that help you, and then all of a sudden you've got several teams doing independent stuff. You're spending more time as an administrator than operator, or not actually building a product that you're selling.
Mhm.
And then you're running the business. So I found a company locally, and I wanted to stay in the Northern Virginia area. There was a company for sale. I negotiated with the owner. He stayed during the transition. He's still an employee of mine. And my plan was to buy his company and grow it as opposed to buying something larger. My intent to buying an electrical contractor was to offer design build electrical engineering and electrical construction services, which as a designer, I saw there was a lot of demand for. There's a lot of electrical only projects out there and not enough companies willing to take those on from beginning to end. And I've been pretty successful finding those projects. They're still very interesting to me as an engineer, and they're more difficult electrically to perform The complexity comes with higher margins, and it's not a larger scale, so it fits the bucket.
Talk a little bit about that. For somebody who doesn't know actually electrical design, you were looking to implement this into the business that you acquired. What did that look like? And did that come from you, being an electrical engineer and doing that previously and seeing these other businesses that you guys were, having to work with, communicate with?
Yeah, so as a design engineer, I get the requirements from a owner or an architect or owner's representative saying, hey, we have all these loads, all this HVAC equipment that we're going to put and all these server racks in this room, and you need to power all that stuff up. Okay, I design the drawings that powers it all up, and then I hand that off along with the rest of the engineering and architect's drawings to the GCs, the general contractors that will bid that job. The GCs will gather numbers from all the subcontractors, package it up together, put their markup on it, and hand it to the construction manager, owner's rep, whoever's managing the bid to see what the best price is, and then they build it. In a design build process, I own that whole process I just described. I'm the engineer talking directly to the owner. There is no bid. I present the amounts to the owner, like this is what the cost is. If they're subs, they're minor to electrical. I would not be taking on a design build that's not mostly electrical. So the subs are like 20% or less of the scope. So I control them. But really, the meat of the job is electrical. It's a turnkey system where the owner says, I want the double the size of the power coming into this building. There might be a little bit of brickwork, enlarging an electrical room. There might be more HVAC, but the gist of the job is electrical in nature. And that's the types of projects that, we have a big strength in. The company that I bought also had a lot of experience in water treatment, which is a utility work, but a specific type of utility work. The water treatment plants have a lot of hazardous areas and chemicals. So electrically, you have to use different types of materials than you would in a commercial or light industrial or residential. So that came with the business, and I've been growing that as well. But my original intent was to combine the design and the building, which we've been doing, sort of successfully.
The company that you ended up acquiring, what stood out to you about that company? Is that one of the first ones that you looked at?
The experience of the owner, the jobs that he did. I did not want to buy something that was building people's basements out. It's a very commoditized work when you do light commercial where you're renovating office suites. That a lot of people can enter that field. You just need a license and some experience, and you can do that work as a subcontractor. Subcontractor work in that area is not very specialized, so there's not many barriers to entry. You can get a lot of quotes, but water treatment work, utility work, that's the experience that the company that I purchased had. And that's higher margin, more complex work that I was so interested in.
Now, the business that you looked at, it was one of the first businesses that you came across?
It really was. Yeah, it was the first after, I looked in 2018, 2019, then I got my MBA and I started looking again. And there was one that was 15 miles from my house. It was a little smaller. With the SBA loan, you can get something up to $5 million. I had a nice pot of money to put a down payment on something that size. And Mac General Electrical was a lot cheaper and smaller than that. It was 10 employees, 11 with the owner. The price was, a tenth, but it checked a lot of the qualifications that I wanted in a business, like the previous owner's depth of experience that he reared.
And talk to me about you and the owner, because it seemed like you liked the way that he was running this business. It was very, niche, and you needed more experience to run something of the projects that he was going after. So, did you have him on with you for a long period of time? How did that transition look like?
I did not like the way he ran the business. That I changed immediately. I liked the projects that he pursued and the way that he
Okay.
completed the projects. I liked his quality and the projects he went after, which were complicated. He ran the business how it suited to him. Not that it was wrong, but if it was a lifestyle business. He got a project, he did it, and then he did little stuff here and there till he got the next
Mhm.
project that he
Okay.
liked. I, on the other hand, on day one, pursued those steak projects that fill you up, but you also need some carbs at the bottom to like fill in the holes and some salad on top and maybe a couple things here and there that are dessert. Some people call it big rocks. You put the big rocks in, then the medium
Yeah.
rocks, then the sand. He handled it differently and in a smaller scale. So he took on one big job and he did it, and then he didn't time it correctly. That's when I implemented more systems in place to be able to control multiple projects and the manpower using technology. I would say the company was stuck maybe, 10 to 15 years back. He did have an ERP system. It just wasn't latest technology. He did have accounting software. It just sat on a desktop. It wasn't in the cloud, things like that. Transition between me and him, I met him a few times as we negotiated. I like his personality. He's a good guy. If you buy someone's business and the person's not a good person, it's got to be one hell of a business. It's got to be one hell of a product. I'm not saying the owner has to be a great person for you to buy their business, but it helps. In this case, he's a good guy, and now he does all my estimates. In construction, you really got to trust someone to do their estimates. He's been doing his own estimates for 20 some years. I review them, but I trust, that he captured everything. He's an intelligent guy. So that's like 1/3 of the main components of my business that I trust him with. But he felt good stepping back, not being responsible for the operations or financial component of a business or the HR. He is responsible for an important part of the business, which is bringing work in. I'm ultimately, responsible for that. So I guide him. We do our weekly meetings, and let's shoot for this job and that job. And I walk off, and then the rest of the week he knows what to do. He's got him and his assistant, and other guys are managing the projects, and I'll swoop in and do this here and there, but mainly I'm running the business and planning to expand. We get along great. That was good to have.
Yeah. Now, when you were looking at this business, you clearly saw those gaps, that you could fill within the business, things that you would change, operate differently. Was there any risks that you had seen when you were doing your due diligence on this business?
Yes, a lot. It was I don't like calling it a turnaround, but it kind of was on the business side. Not on the operation side, but on the business side. It was like, let's bring this business, right track it, and grow it where it needs to grow. When I bought it, the backlog was almost non existent. The equipment, a year and a half later, I've replaced 75% of everything. I've replaced all the systems. The only thing I did not replace is the people in the history. Every single employee stayed and grown in the business, including Mike, the previous owner. So that part I liked a lot. The people in the business, which made the business, and the previous jobs they've done. And that was enough. I did identify the risk. The backlog was a big hello moment for me. I really thought through really hard, like, do I want to do this? And I talked to Mike the day before we signed the deal. And I was like, well, you and I are going to just work our asses off and find new work, right? He's like, that's right. I got a lot of stuff out there. We're going to find work. I always find work. I'm like, okay, day one, I trust you. Let's get that work. And within a month, we added $1 million to the backlog, which, gave us $1.1 million for, which was good. It felt good. That was the first win. I didn't go into a business plan because the business side wasn't that much business. It all centered around Mike. So how to take it to the next level and create a real organization. It started with getting backlog. And then I just had a list. It was very simple. Get work. Implement this system. And I did that right before I took over. Because once I was in the seat, I was just working nonstop for the first month or two. But I just went down that list. And by the end of December, I hit 2/3 of this list. Now it's time to wait. Now it's time to start the jobs. The checks coming in. I've been lucky and I had lines of credit and stuff that I can maintain the operations going as I grow. So I invested additional capital to help me expand. All that is important. You got to line
Yeah.
that up beforehand because construction is finicky with that way. You need capital, and that helped me grow decently in the last year or so. But I did have a plan, and I just checked the list, and luckily it was a good plan.
Let's talk about the capital structure. So you bought the business for how much? And I mean, it's been a year and a half into the acquisition. What does that working capital look like? You have a clear vision of it now or a clear idea of what you need to have.
Sure. I bought Mag General in September 2024. Purchase price was 450,000. I came in, but that was an asset based transaction. With the 450, I got 170,000 of working capital in the form of accounts receivable, and then I brought in another, say, 75,000 into the cash account just to manage payroll and stuff. So I brought in 525 day one. I probably plugged in of my personal capital another 300,000 on top of that. Right now, our run rate is for a $4.5 million business. A year and a half later, so for example, the accounts receivable the day I bought it was 320,000, and as of today, it's close to 1 million. So that growth of accounts receivable minus the accounts payable, that's your working capital. So that's $700,000. That money has to come from somewhere. It's been coming in the form of additional contributions on my end, whether it's from profits or outside capital, and debt from lines of credit. So that 300K to a million plus invested, plus money I invested in new equipment, put that as 100,000, and other little things like I renovated the office, I bought new computers. All that capital has gone into the business. It's a more robust organization, but there is initial investment.
Yeah. And how much was the SBA loan for?
I did not get an SBA loan.
You didn't.
I did. I got a personal line of credit, and then I had some cash savings to my wife and myself, mainly my wife. That's where the capital comes from.
Now you said the growth. What did that look like? You're at 4.5 AR right now.
My run rate is almost like 400,000 in billables a month. The end of 2024 with the transition and everything. So his 2023 numbers were 1.3 million. 2024 between the transition and everything, it went down to 1.1 million in sales. Closing 2025, we were 3.2 million. So almost 3x in the 1 year. And then this year we're looking to get close to 6 million. Right now the run rate is 4.5. So we gotta invest more. Not as heavy as last year, but we started with 11 employees and then myself, and now we're 29 or 30. 20 almost robust office with a couple project managers, a couple estimating, in-house operations, outside accounting. Follow loosely this rewild system where there's a lot of advertising for several levels. You've got single person businesses where you just start up. Then you got owner centric businesses, also known as foreman businesses. And in the construction world, they have different names, right? You got Chuck in a truck, which is a guy and a buddy in a truck billing, and the wife is doing everything at night. And you're doing the estimates and you're doing everything. You can count your employees in one hand, but you're earning money. You're making, 1 to 400,000, and then you keep getting opportunities. So you grow to about 8 or 10, about as much as you can manage. Your buddy in the truck becomes another foreman. It's you plus your two trusted guys. Your wife left the job and now she's running the office. You're mainly estimates and shaking hands and fixing problems. And you're the project manager, and then you've got a bunch of helpers. You're at 10 employees. That's basically what I bought. Where a guy's mainly in the office, so he had made that transition, and then he's only in the field to fix the big issues because he's also still the most knowledgeable guy in the field. I bought that to transition it into the next level where a lot of construction people have a problem going from I can do anything to I need the business to do everything and I just oversee from quarterback to coach. A lot of those very talented construction guys out there, they can't let go of touching everything to being the coach. But when I bought that, and I kept Mike around, I'm like, hey, I need to promote someone from within the current organization to be the new coach, and I move people around. He had the talent there. As people grow and age out, there should be a new generation of opportunity, and that's kind of what I brought when I bought over his top 2, 3 guys. They all have a lot more responsibility because I took it away from Mike. I didn't want to take it all on myself, and I delegated it to new guys. I got a guy who's head of operations. One guy became more of a project manager. Mike became just estimates, and we could grow that way, redistributing responsibility, still overseeing it with checks and balances. My immediate plan was to go from level 2 owner head centric to more of an organization. And then now in this next year, I want to remove myself even more while still, promoting the growth of the company where I'm implementing meetings and such so that things don't need my immediate input. I can oversee how the company runs, and I feel like I have certain talents in the electrical industry between engineering and construction that I can fix anything. I have no issues with the operation side of it, and I don't have any issues with the business side of it, but growth in itself has some challenges, and I want to focus on that and getting, the best margin jobs and directing focus, and that's taking it from a level 3 to a level 4 company
Hmm.
that has a group of men running the organization and you're leading the organization in the direction that you want.
Yeah.
Going from captain of a single ship, an armada of multiple ships that are going in the same direction.
Does that mean acquiring some other businesses?
I would consider acquiring another or expanding to other regions. There's plenty of business in the Washington, D.C. area, just growth here. You can create new units. You can also diversify by saying, I'm going to separate between subcontractor, prime work as a GC, and then design build. So you can also separate by unit, by revenue source. You can also separate by region. You can separate by industry, whether you go healthcare, data center, government. I would
Yeah.
consider each one of those in my example
Yeah.
a separate ship.
You had a lot of ties to that world of engineers, developers, right? Do you think those relationships were crucial to you buying a business like that and then growing it on that end, getting into these bids? Maybe they were invitation only bids.
It's definitely been a plus, not a minus. Knowing people in the industry and locally. I've had my entire career in the DC area. I'm about a local contractor. I can reach out to a lot more parties than your typical subcontractor, and I can get direct work, and I can source as much of it as, I have a lot of connections, the engineering side, working for years. So I've gotten a couple projects that way, and it's a big advantage.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, construction, especially when you get to a certain level or your company gets to a certain size, it's a close knit and its own community within that
Yes.
industry. So I can imagine that that definitely, gives you a little bit of leverage, right?
It's a big edge. I won't say leverage because we're still the contractor, and then when you're doing prime work or design build, you have better levels of leverage. The subcontractor really takes the back foot in construction. They're financing the job for the GC by getting paid later. They're last to get paid, first to have to pay up. So being a subcontractor only is not the niche. Like just regular commercial construction is not really the best. But then you start having these construction pieces, and it gets better. And as far as what the quality of work we can offer is because we have in-house engineering, and there's usually issues in the drawings or in the direction of work's supposed to be or conflicts. We can provide solutions. So we have an advantage where if there's an issue in the field, we don't just put our hands up and say, what do we do now? We can proactively provide a solution that keeps the schedule going, fixes the problem. So I'm not the only engineer. I have two other guys in house. So we do some design work, so we easily can solve problems. We look forward to solving those problems. And that gives us a unique advantage that's gotten the word out, in the local area saying, hey, you got a difficult job with bad drawings. These might be the guys to hire.
Nice. Okay. And I mean, as far as union goes, is the business unionized, non-unionized?
We are non-union. Virginia's a right to work state. We do compete with union jobs. We compete with non-union jobs. I pay my, main guys pretty equal, better than the unions, and I provide better working conditions that I think than I provide some benefits, vacation time, time off, so the body can heal. I provide tool credits. I provide time for education. I have an ERP system where I can backlog so much work, so guys are gainfully employed as W-2 employees. I don't have 1099s. I keep all employees in house. That way, the same teams work together. A union cannot guarantee that. You go back to a work hall and you might be working at a different company. I have the same units working together. Same 7 teams currently have been working multiple projects. Sometimes groups get they're smaller depending on the project, but it's the same guys. They all know each other. We have a few beers a couple times a year, so it's a tight knit group, even though it's 30 people, and that promotes better communication. And guys in the field, one foreman, he sees an ocean of work at a project. He doesn't call me and say, "What do I do?" He's like, "Hey, I heard, Joe was late. Can he come over next week?" And they just check with me, and all I have to do is update it in the system. But they already worked it out. When the field's talking to each other, work is easy. Or when the guy says, "Hey, the drawings aren't right. No, can you take a look at it?" I'm like, "I'm happy to take a look at it." I go out in the field, I get the information, I go back to the office, I bounce it off another engineer, we redirect the solution, we send an RFI, we maybe get a different product in a matter of a couple of days, and then project goes forward.
Hmm.
And it all starts with really good communication between the field and the office, and we have that at our company. Um, Mainly because not because we're not union. That wasn't the point of my spiel. It was just a little pitch for myself. But the unions can have very very good work. I'm just not familiar with it. But
Yeah. Okay. No, I've always seen the other side of it. I've talked to workers, employees, what they think about union, non-union companies, but, as an owner, there's a different outlook or a different opinion on having your business go union or non-unionized. I mean, you have a different perspective on that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too familiar with it. I even have some guys that used to work union and now they're non-union. With the technology out here now, the work hall system, and how easy it is to compare your salary with somebody else's salary. It's not as productive system as it used to be. I can see where everybody's track the cards. I know where everybody is at every time when they check in. So I have a very good level of comfort of what everybody's doing. But also, I am assigning them the jobs. Project managers tracking it. We know what the next job is these guys are going to work. So we keep people steadily employed, and the salaries are competitive because basically, in 2026, everybody knows what everybody else makes. So there's no secrets out there. I provide education credits for guys. I send some to specialized training. We keep it the same. So,
Yeah.
that's standard.
No, it's great. I mean, that's your retention, right? You want the guys to be happy, that culture is good and the guys will stay. And that's most important. That's what keeps the wheels moving. Enrique, you've moved a lot of levers in this business, right? You've added a lot of systems, a lot of processes that are standard in a larger enterprise, right? That's what you're going to see. What do you think was, two or three of the most important levers that grew the revenue significantly?
Yeah, in construction, you cannot grow it without, qualifications. You have to prove that you can do a job before you get that job. And so, you're always building yourself up. So Mike's qualifications was baseline. Me and Mike together, literally the first thing we did was go from from GC to GC and then reintroduce ourselves. And I noticed that, hey, there's positive feedback about the new partnership we had, and that was step one, like people accepting that, hey, there's a new ownership, but it's going to be the same or better, and Mike's still be around. Reorganizing the company where you go get the work, then there's a group that does the work, and then you also have to do the business, which at first was just me, but now I have a couple people that are focused on just doing the business and honing in on the systems and processes to make things better. For example, last year, I didn't pay much attention to the materials. I didn't control materials. This year, I got a person dedicated for pre-construction and materials control, and that's helping with the systems and making sure I don't overspend last minute getting stuff that I need to finish a job. And we focused before on just being effective. Now I got a guy focusing on efficiency, and those systems on that working on the business really get us to the next level where we can compete with a much larger company, because a much larger company is just a bunch of units the size of us with everything that we have. We got accounting, we got procurement, we got everything in that. Technology helps a lot. I think 15 years ago, you couldn't compete with a company that's $1 billion being a 30-person company. Now you can. I got an ERP system that tells me where everybody is, where everybody should go next, how much every project is doing in a dashboard. I don't spend like a week on Excel planning out the next 3 months. You throw it into Claude, and it does it for you. I throw a bunch of PDFs into Copilot, and it makes me a spreadsheet. I got other programs like Bluebeam that does it for me. It counts up all the receptacles and everything, and we're just punching it into another program, and we getting a bid in after the vendor quotes in an hour or so. That's saving me a lot. There's a lot of technology recently out there that can change the construction industry where it's competitive with white collar work.
Mm.
And white collar work is going to get maximized, so they're reducing the number of white collar people out there because the computers are doing their own. There's less data entry, but we don't do data entry. We do work. We install things. Until they figure out how the robots can do it instead of us. It's still going to be an industry.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I can't foresee that in the next, decade.
You still need the skilled foreman out there that knows how to do the little things and then get it to the next level. And as long as there's two humans control, at least one other human controlling the thing, you'll need the foreman and the superintendent and the other guys. Even if there's some AI camera that notices that tells you I'm the AI superintendent, that's probably the thing that can change. But I'm sure there'll be advances, and it'll make the construction industry, the blue collar guy, more efficient, where he's earning the same as the white collar guy, which just like 70 years ago, the drills came out and everybody's job became a lot more efficient. There's going to be a lot of technology and you have to
Yeah.
implement it. When you see it, and that takes time. The first thing I picked out when I bought Mag General was an ERP system that could do this stuff. And I studied 6 different systems and I picked the one that was best for the company. Will it be the best system when we're at 100 people? Probably not. But at 30, it's great. It's a NOAA, by the way.
Mm.
Just use it. I evaluated a lot of other ones, but for project based business, it's pretty good.
No, those are great tools. I know some people are gonna pick up on all these little, nuggets that you're throwing because a lot of these smaller guys, the ones that you said, chuck in a truck.
Look in the truck is what we call them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something as very simple as a CRM or putting some spreadsheet or some data into Claude and letting it track or get your schedule set up. It'll save these guys a lot of time, but it's just a matter of doing it and implementing it. Small things, right?
Yeah, using it to your advantage, and then seeking help where you need it, and getting out of your comfort zone. It's not all me. I do have like a board of advisors that I seek. Like, am I in the right direction? Kind of questions. I have a business consultant, Lee Mulberry from Northern Star, that I meet with a couple times a month, just to be like, hey, where should I be focusing my energy on the business, just to keep me on track. It's kind of like office hours. Like, hey, I'm seeing these problems. What do you think? So the first session's like, hey, I'm seeing these problems this month. And he's like, yeah, you're getting to this size. You can't be everywhere and you can't shake everyone's hand. You need to have someone dedicated to just handling this HR BS, but it's real stuff that has to happen. So I'm like, all right, I got to put somebody in charge of that. And we work out a way. And he helps me with doing the business part of it.
I love that.
He doesn't know electrical. I know electrical enough. I got guys that know it. I don't need that, but I need stuff for the other things. My dad is an accountant, and he helps me with the accounting and finance. He's retired. He helps me sometimes. Also have a bookkeeper, and he's like, hey, you need to implement these systems now so that you're not worried about who's spending what. Then I got my wife is always a very conservative person that I look to for advice just in general. You create your own advisors. If you have investors, you have a board of directors that, make sure the investors' money is protected and the company is going in the direction that you promised the investors. But when you're the sole owner, it's always good to have like a board of advisors. You're still in charge, but you want to bounce the ideas off other experts. And I've created that board, those advisors.
Enrique, I appreciate you coming on and giving all this information. I want to congratulate you on the growth you've had in the business. It's only been a year and a half, and 3x going forward to 6. I think that's amazing, and there's a lot of people that are going to learn a lot from this podcast.
I hope the success continues and I hope it grows as fast as your
Thanks,
podcast.
Enrique.
Thank you for
Have a
having
good
me.
one.